Good evening and welcome along to episode number 5 here on Not Another Rangers podcast. I'm Davey and I will be your host this evening. The Oxford Dictionary defines defence as resistance from attack, and at our club that seems to be lacking both on and off the park this summer. Not even Vice Chairman Donald Finlay KC could defend what has been served up to the fan base this pre-season. A trip to Germany, which again leaked another 4 goals, leaves us searching for more questions than answers. A summer which has promised so much, in all honesty, has delivered very little. Joining me to discuss all that and more are Mr. Scott Kerr, Scotty from the engine room of the Rangers Journal, and international jet setter himself, Ricky. Scotty, for the Rangers Journal, I'll come to you first. How are you?
Aye, not bad, mate. Not bad. Thanks for having me on. It's appreciated.
Delighted to have you on, and thanks very much on behalf of me and Kerr for everything that you've done to help us out so far. Scott, how are we?
I'm not bad, Davey. I was away a mystery weekend, overnight trip. On the bus Saturday morning. We wondered where we were off to. Went to Aberdeen. Of all places, we went to Aberdeen. Aberdeen, Peterhead, Balliter and Braemar. Balliter and Braemar were really nice, I have to say. We enjoyed our time there, but it was good. One of the times we just, me and my wife just done it to get away for the weekend. So it was the last weekend before the season starts. So we thought we'd done it last weekend. This Saturday, right enough, it's Tynecastle.
The calm before the storm. And Ricky, you've been jet setting today from A to B. How are we? Relaxed?
Yeah, very good. I wouldn't say jet setting, unfortunately, over to Abu Dhabi to go back to work tomorrow. But travelling's always a nightmare nowadays, especially in the summer. The airports are complete hell on earth. But glad to be here, guys. Looking forward to my second pod.
So, Scott Kerr, I'll kick things off tonight with the chairman himself. Obviously, he's been conspicuous by his absence for the last 2.5 years, it seems. But tonight he came out and tried to put the record straight on a few things. I don't know if it was more an own goal than any sort of positive that we could look in. He did answer some questions. He did say that the delay in terms of the stadium rebuild has been down to shipping. And unfortunately, we've only received one of the 3 consignment that will be required to complete the works. What alarmed me about that is he didn't elaborate on any contingency plans in terms of, financial reward back to the club for the people that we're dealing with in order to, get these works done. And I think the fans deserve to hear a bit more on that. And I just think he's left us wanting more. And unfortunately, that's not a good sign when you're the chairman of a football club.
To be honest with you, Davey, I think he's in a position where he answered the questions which he knew the fans were kind of looking at, like the build works and transfer and maybe going to be sitting at Hampden. They were kind of the 3 things went over. He was never going to go into detail. It was a well-scripted interview. Listen, it was okay. It answered some of the questions, but it left some of the questions unanswered. But I never thought for a second he was going to go a deep dive into stuff. I don't think that's what he does. I don't think he would do it on a TV channel as well, or on club channel. I think it would cause too many issues as well. So he's come out, told us what we kind of wanted to know, not in depth, but I said earlier, it was decent. I wanted more, but I didn't expect more.
Scotty, if we think about it, obviously the most alarming aspects of the conversation he had with Rangers TV would probably be about transfers and the budget. Now, he did mention 2024, the calendar year that is, we've spent 11.5 million so far, and he didn't really elaborate much more on that. And he did say there's also loan fees on top of that. We haven't really recouped much of that money. If you think about, we've recently sold Sam Lammers. I assume we're still trying to ship players out the door. Are you taking that as you're not expecting much business now to be done between now and the European deadline and, of course, Saturday's trip to Tynecastle?
First of all, what I'll say about interviews, I think John Bennett would make a really, really good politician. I think he's went round it's like going round a runabout in a pedal bike. He's not done it very well. He's not answered anything directly either for me. He's gave a wee bit of clarity on us and that, but it's stuff that we already knew. In terms of signings, I wouldn't say I'm worried yet, because Rangers keep their cards close to their chest. Like, anything we've heard or seen this summer, it's been from the opposing side. Like, take Juan Jordan, for example, right? All the stuff's been coming for Spanish journalists. We heard for Chris Jack today saying the deal's not on, and then there's been another report tonight saying that there's not even been an offer. So we don't know what's true and what's false with transfers. What worried me about that interview for John Bennett, though, was he's not elaborated on saying there's funds there for Philippe Clement. You can't expect a guy to be all in when you're not getting him any money to spend. Now, Sam Lammers has been out to a couple of million in for him. I've been saying it's an undisclosed fee. I'm not getting myself a headache, guessing what it actually is. Yanis Hadji and Connor Goldson sound as if they're going to be next. As soon as these things start to get announced, I'll maybe settle down a wee bit. But back to your question, I don't know if we're going to have anything in for Saturday. European deadline's a completely different thing. But if we're going to go ahead this season and fill our squad with loan signings, then I think we need to dim our expectations a wee bit, if I'm being honest with you, David.
Well, this is the thing, Ricky. Obviously, he alluded to the fact that the problem at Rangers has been that there's no long-term planning, or has been no long-term planning in place. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here. John Bennett's been the guy in charge for the last 2 and a bit years, and he did hand a hefty transfer budget last year to the incumbent manager at the time, which was Michael Beale. Now, whether we spent that money, correctly or not, as it would seem, we haven't spent it well, but there was a large chunk of money provided. We haven't recouped what we spent there, and we're probably going to take a loss on the vast majority of signings there. The age profile of the player was roughly between 26, 28, 29, so not that elite experienced player, but in the sort of coming towards your peak bracket. Yes. There has been no sell-on value of any of those players bought, so that's a worry. We got the business model wrong last season, but is John Bennett partly culpable for being a large part of that?
Yes, he is. He's been here now for many years. I mean, they brought in Pedro. It seems like they've got everything back to front. They bring in these managers that are not good enough and then back them, throw 10 million at a manager like Pedro, throw 10 million at a manager like Beale. And then when they bring in good managers that are tactical, that the fans get behind, like Clement and Gio, they seem to just give them scraps off the table. The money's been wasted, and we end up with what we've got just now. I think Clement made it pretty clear at the start of the summer that he was surprised that he had to sell before he was going to buy. The last week, we started to see players moving. Goldson looks like he's out. It's very surprising that that's not been announced. Hadji's out, and also we've moved on Lammers as well. So hopefully that money is going to be reinvested in the team. What was worrying to me was he said that it sounded like Clement was starting on minus 10.5 million because he had to get rid of that He had to get rid of that 10.5 million because they don't want to see that in the next budget before. So if that's the case, I mean that's hamstringing the manager even more. I mean that's a hefty amount of money to start minus that Clement has to make up. So let's see how we've still got a month to go in the transfer window, and we need to sign some players. That's for sure.
Okay, see if we take Ricky's point in isolation there about Bennett saying that he had to recoup a £10.5 million loss before they really get the player trading model up and running. Is that a concern in terms of Clement going into this season and his budget? Because we all know, as a fan base, patience isn't our strong point, and we expect a winning Rangers side no matter what the cost. It doesn't matter. There's been managers in the past that have overcame obstacles, but is this Bennett saying that Clement will get time and we need to build to the future, alluding to the fact that the next few years could be difficult ones for us as fans?
I think, Davey, but we kind of expected that anyway. There's nobody going into this season expecting us to be going out and firing all cylinders because they've made 14 new signings and we're going to run over everybody. We always knew at the start of the season we had to recruit some money because one, the wage bill's been far too high for the last few seasons for what we've been doing. I don't know what we've been doing at Ibrox, but we pay players too much money. I get it, you have to play players that maybe about 20%, 30% over that to come to Scotland. I get that, but we're paying them far too much, and then we do, and they're not good enough. We can't get rid of them because they're looking for that wage somewhere else, and I find that difficult to get unless you give them a sweetener to leave. So he made a good point when he said the poor trading model hasn't been there. He is culpable, but you can't really blame him to a point because he's on the football side of it, but he does appoint the person on the football side of it, so you have to look at that. But I think Clement's pressures, you kind of noticed, he knows he's banging his head against a brick wall at the moment. I don't know if we'll be signings before Saturday. I'm hoping there's at least a centre back, somebody that can actually head of the ball, somebody that can actually defend, because if we're going to that game on Saturday with the same back four, we will be struggling. But the manager needs help, the manager. But I think it is, we need to shift high earners, and that's why Golson's been away. Is it a loan deal? Is it permanently? We don't know. Is Tav going? We don't know either, because like Scotty said, we only kind of know when it happens. You've got hundreds of rumours of players coming in and players leaving, but until it actually happens, we don't know, because Rangers don't see a lot. Chris Jack can come out with some stuff now and again, but we don't see a lot because that's the way they do it. So, as I say, I think he just said what he wanted to say. I don't think he was going to say anything else. If it goes pear-shaped very quickly, is he going to stick with Clement? He says we'll have to back the man. He's experienced. We should stick with him. But after 4 weeks of the season, and it's not looking good, the pressure's going to be on the manager straight away, and his hands have been tied. But for what he's got to play with, Ibrox, sometimes it doesn't make the correct decisions either tactically.
Scotty, if I could touch on Kerr's point in greater detail, we tend to look at the negative as Rangers fans recently because there hasn't been too much to cling on to other than a League Cup in recent years. So the way I see it, Kerr's saying there that if the results don't go the way, if we look at it the first month of the season, an away trip to Tynecastle, an away trip to Parkhead, we've got qualifiers for the Champions League. If two of the three or all three are unsuccessful for us, Clement's under serious pressure regardless of what the board says, and that's a hard battle to fight when you're Rangers manager if you lose the fans early. And I think what goes against them in terms of that as well is the synergy that he talked so much about last season, being able to build up. It'll be hard to strike that up at Hampden.
Aye, definitely, but you've kind of answered your own question there, Davey, when you've said like he's playing at Hampden. Clement can't really be blamed for the circumstances. As a club, we're not giving him the tools to go and do a good job. Now, like we did with Michael Beale last summer, if we gave Clement that backing and the tools to go and do the job, then we can sit back and say, right, that's on the manager, just like we did with Michael Beale. I think we can forget the Champions League, right? For me, that's completely out with the question for me. Dynamo Kiev's going to be a solid match, a really, really tight game. If we get through that, we get £5 million. Like we get into the playoff, what we did last season. That's a bonus for me. I would take 9 points in the Europa League if I'm going to dim my expectations. Just like a club seem to be pushing this narrative through the manager and through that interview today that this is all about seeing progress. That's fine, but I want to see us beat Celtic this season at least a couple of times. I want to see us shut that gap because under two managers last season, we only gave them a game once, and that was in the Scottish Cup final. You know what I mean? They were only really good enough any other time, and they're not a great party. They're not the best side, the best Celtic side I've seen in my lifetime. They're there, and they've certainly not went out and bought anybody that's got me worried this summer. But anyway, back to Rangers. That's why we're here. Hopefully, if Clement can get 9 points in Europa League football, I'll be quite content. And then it's just a case of it's damage limitation. You've even heard it in the Sky Sports interview today, which we will touch upon, where he says things along the lines of, you know, the team's going to take time to gel. It's going to take a couple of months. It might be bad at first, but it will get better. You don't say all that if you're quite quietly confident getting into a season. You know what I mean? You can kind of read between the lines where we're really at, and we need to be honest and call it out for what it is, mate.
No, it's hard to disagree with that, Scotty. And Ricky, if we take that point and we focus on Clement, obviously we spoke on Friday that there has been a few things that he said in press conferences that you sort of, your ears prick up and you take notice of, and not always a good or a positive manner. And then today he spoke at length with Mark Benstead at Sky Sports News, and I think it was about 8-9 minutes long. And the first thing that he said, which obviously John Bennett then went to allude to in his, is that we need a big rebuild.
Yes.
So if we need a big rebuild, why at the moment are we only sitting with really 2 players who weren't here from last season? If we need a big rebuild, why haven't the key positions been strengthened? I get that it might be down to finances and being unable to ship players out, but if he's saying we need a big rebuild, that means that rebuild is not underway as yet.
Yeah, it's simple as the board is not giving him the money. If it was up to Comont, he would have 6-7 players in. And I listened to Comont's interview today, and I thought Bennett's interview was more interesting from the point of view. He said that Comont sat him down in May, and the first thing Comont said to Bennett was, "This is a major rebuild we need at Rangers. This is a lot bigger than what I expected it to be." And I thought that was a little bit more telling than what Comont said today. As I said, if Comont had his way, he would have the players in. And I'm sure he's every day, I'm sure he's annoying Coppin and telling him, look, I need these players. Where are these players, you know? You saw how we defended in that friendly last week. And, it was so bad. I mean, we were good going forward, but the defending and watching, this is what will get the fans back up, is watching Tavernier defend like that in the first. If we go to Parkhead, and Tom Lawrence is completely... He played brilliant at the weekend, but if he's invisible in the 10, Scott Wright is invisible on the right wing, Tav is defending like that at the back, Davies has one of his performances at Parkhead, it doesn't matter about us being all in and the fans being all in. The fans will be apoplectic. They will be absolutely going bananas if that happens again. He's not managed to beat Celtic yet. To be honest, in his eyes, he's been close a few times. Maybe in the cup final, you can say was probably the closest he got. But again, Butland made a big mistake and we lost the match. And at the end of the day, it's always winning that counts in Old Firm games. So like Scott says, he has to win. He has to get close to Celtic and he has to win one of these first Old Firm games. And the John Bennett and the board, they're not making it easy for him with this Hampden because, like you said earlier, I think the atmosphere at Hampden is going to be absolutely dreadful. It's good for cup finals, but when it comes to semi-finals and stuff like that, the place is you're so far away from the pitch. The place is like a morgue, you know.
No, I think you make fantastic points there. And Kerr, I'm going to switch track a wee bit because of something Ricky touched on, and that is Jack Butland. Now, again, he spoke to Sky Sports News today at great length as well. And I think the one thing that we can't question about Jack Butland is he carries himself very well. He's very well media trained. He says all the right things. He didn't give the media the soundbite that they were looking for today. He played his cards very close to his chest, unlike perhaps Cyril Dessers did the other day when he gave them the headline that they all wanted. And that's great, and that's all the things that you look for. But I think we have to be fair and say that his performances of late have been a concern towards the end of last season. And I don't think he's covered himself in glory this pre-season. I know that Stevie Clifford, the four lads, defended him on the Rangers Review today, but I think Butland was at least culpable, positionally for 2 of the goals at the weekend. He was rotten against Ajax, and let's face it, as Ricky said, he had the big clanger in the cup final. So is his form a concern to you?
Not really, no. I think Jack will be fine once the season starts. Listen, every player goes through bad performances. A goalkeeper is more than the eye because he can make 9 great saves. It makes one mistake, it costs you the game. Then he's culpable. So I think he'll be fine. I just think he's got confidence. Jack, you can see that he carries himself really well. I think he's one of these guys who'll try and get a team together. He'll try and bring a bond between the rest of the unit, and he'll try and bump everybody up in the dressing room and stuff like that. Listen, if he makes mistakes when the season starts, then maybe the manager will have to look to maybe bring in Liam Kelly and give Jack a rest. But to be honest with you, I think he'll be fine. He's made a few errors, yeah, but I remember other keepers in the past making errors. Andy Gore, when he first came, made a few errors. I know that Andy's probably the best keeper ever, but I think he'll be fine, Davey. I think Jack's a very good keeper. and I've got my trust in him for this season. I think he will end up probably being captain, but I think he'll be fine. Listen, I could sit here and you can tell me next week he's dropped that ball in the front of the striker's feet and they've scored, and I'll say, fair enough, he made a mistake, but I think he'll be fine into the season. I do.
Scotty, obviously he's no helped by the fact that the defence keeps changing and we don't have a settled back four. I always grew up with a mantra that you heard that good managers build their team for the back. Is it a concern to you that we haven't signed a centre-half to start so far? And obviously in that, a commanding centre-half, because that seems to be what the team is lacking at the moment. I don't think the synergy between Ben Davies and Souttar is there. I think it's a worry if you're relying on 36, almost 37-year-old Liam Balogun to be your first choice centre-half for the year. I think we've always seen that Balogun struggles to play 2 games in a week and then he'll be missing for 3 or 4 weeks. So how do we address that? And is that partly maybe why Butland doesn't look as settled at the moment?
Could be a major reason for it, but I keep a Jack Butland's quality and class. I think he's just having a blip. I think the England stuff last season has had an effect on his form, because I think we can all agree towards the tail end of last season, cup final, he should have caught that shot before. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's been in his best form. I think it's affected him. I think he will recover first though, because he has got character. I think he probably is going to be our next captain, if we're fair, just by the way he carries himself. He is one of the ones that stand out as of a Rangers standard as a person and as a player. Just by the amount of class he carries. In terms of your defence, I've been saying it since the beginning of last season that not signing a centre-back was going to cost Michael Bailey's job, and it did. That left side of the fence has always been a nightmare since Goldson came in. He's never had a long-term partner. I mean, we could count with 2 hands easily the amount of centre-back partnerships that Goldson's had during his time here. Now we don't even have him. What we need is somebody that's going to come in and set the bar at the back, almost like a Carlos Cuellar or a Majid Bugera. Now that's fantasy stuff, right? But you need a centre-back that's going to come in and have that impact, Davey, 100%. A guy that's going to come in and just stand out. We've not had it in God knows how long. As much as Connor Goldson was an average defender with brilliant leadership skills, I always says. It was never anything great, but he got you a 7 out of 10 every week, so he was good enough. That's all you need in this league. But we definitely need somebody to come in and really stamp their authority on the back line and say, right, this is what's going to happen. You know what I mean? This is where I want you to go, because see, if Redvan gets an injury and we've got Ben Davies and Hefty at left back, we're in trouble. We're in absolute trouble. Hefty's raw. He's still settling. He's going to take time to settle. I would rather Robbie Fraser plays in front of him just now if it gets that bad. Tavernier is done. We can dress it up as we want. He's finished. He's either not interested or he's not fit just now. I think speculation's affecting his performances in pre-season as well. Whether he's had half an hour, I don't care how many minutes he's had. He's better than what he's shown us. And then you go to centre back, and Leon Balogun is still our best centre back just now. There's no other way of dressing it up. He's better than John Souttar. John Souttar gets caught way ball under his feet nearly every single match. He's had more errors last season than what he really get called out for. And Ben Davies at the back, I'm just not a fan. He's far too, how do I put it? He's too wee for a league to begin with. He's got he's got a good cross-field pass on him, but I don't want to see my centre-back springing long balls out of the wing. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to see that anymore. I want to see he's playing through the lines and being a good team.
No, I have to agree with everything you said there, Scotty. Ricky, if we take that and look at how we played against Union Berlin and then look at how we played all season, the goals that we are losing are massive concerns because nobody's playing good football round about us and you know, making us work hard for it. It's all far too easy for the opposition at the moment. And if we look at the point that Scotty made there in regards to James Tavernier, I think he's been a slow starter the last couple of seasons, and unfortunately last season never played himself into any sort of forum that was positive enough to withstand the negative comments. But his rival for the position at the moment would seem to be Dujon Sterling, and he just doesn't seem to be robust enough. So is this a big question mark going forward, because I think the four of us would be lying as if to say we could pick the outright four defenders that we think Clement will start with at Tynecastle. And I think John Sterling's physicality is needed in the side, but if he's not robust enough or fit enough to play 90 minutes every week, that's going to be a big worry for us.
Yeah, but I think you saw on Saturday, Clement has been working them super hard in pre-season, which is definitely good. And you could tell the players looked knackered after 30 minutes. So I can only imagine that must have been the amount of running they've been doing, and that was why they looked so tired. Lawrence, when he scored, barely had the energy to celebrate. It was quite funny to watch him. But to be honest, we need a leader at the back of the defence. And it's not just when we're defending. It's when our fullbacks go forward, because when our fullbacks go forward, there doesn't seem ever they're not listening to the manager's instructions, or nobody seems to be controlling the back line. So you saw at the weekend, the first goal we lost. We were actually in control of the match for the first 5 minutes. We were playing very, very well. And then Jeffrey's way up the park. He's way too high. One long ball, Suter's chasing a balloon. He misses the ball. And then it comes over and there's a massive gap. Cortez doesn't follow the back and we lose a goal. And that's the sort of goals we're losing all the time. Players are out of position. They're not in the correct position. So we need a leader at the back that can take control of that, because the manager can only do so much. And Connor Goldson, to be fair, he was a bit of a leader at the back. So it's a huge hole that we've lost if he moves to, or when he moves to Cyprus. Because to be honest, I don't really have faith in any of the three main centre backs we'll have just now. I don't have faith in Suter. I don't have faith in Davies. Okay, maybe some SPL matches you'll be okay. Balogun would be my number. If you were asking me who was going to play at Tynecastle in defence, I would hope to see Sterling. He was going to start on Saturday, but picked up a small niggle, like you said. Yilmaz would be left back for sure, because like Scott says, he's still settling and he needs to get used to how we play. And then I would be playing Balogun, and probably Suter would be my defence for Tynecastle.
Kerr, do you go along with that? And also, how do you think we'll play? Because is Tom Lawrence, the fact that he scored 2 goals, almost guaranteed himself a start at Tynecastle? Because I think the vast majority of us was looking at pre-season and thinking that Clement was going to scrap this number 10 and almost play. It looked like we were looking for a sort of deep lying 6. But the fact that Tom Lawrence scored 2 goals, will that be seen as a confidence booster? And therefore Diamande and Barron will be playing behind him and he will be the number 10 on Saturday? You're on mute, Keir.
No. The number 10 for me is decent if you've got players that can play the position. But obviously Haji's Ofsky. Campbell's honestly going to be away as well. So you've got Lawrence left, and we all know Tom is a great striker of the ball. We know how good a player's been in the past, but I just think his legs are away. After 20 minutes, he looks totally gushed, and it's like it leaves so much work to do for Barron and Diamande. And if you try to push up, and then we do get hit in the break, there's so much space between our midfield and defence, and you can see why defence sometimes struggles, because there's nobody coming back to help. There's so much space to play through. So I think if we played a section 2-8, it would actually suit us better. But because of the injuries we're having and no get the players there, I think that's why he's playing him. If Raskin was still fit, he might have played him in there with Diamande and Barron and played Diamande further forward, because I think he could do that role. And I think he's fit enough and energetic enough to do the box-to-box role. Barron's the same, and I think Raskin could just sit in there and patrol, because I think that's what he could be good at. But until all his players are fit, you're not going to see that. Defensively, I don't really dislike Ben Davies as much as a lot of what I think Ben Davies is a really good footballer. Defensively, he is very weak and he's not the greatest in there. But I think footballing wise, he's actually decent. But we need a big dominant defender, and Balogun's the only one we've got, but he can't play every week. And we need, I know Scotty mentioned Carlos Queller's names earlier on and Bagheera. I was even the other day, I was talking to somebody, I mentioned Colin Hendry, so I'm going further back. Just somebody who's good in the air and throws his body in the line. I don't care if he can pass it 50 yards diagonals. Just somebody that can defend. Just somebody that stalks our striker. Somebody that wins the ball when it comes over into our box, shouts, "That's mine," and goes and headers it away. Because that's what we've been missing, Dave. We've been missing just a big dominant figure in there. We've not had one for ages. Connor Goldson was good at organising when he first came through the door, Probably the first 4 years he was here, he was our best defender. But you see, he played that much football, his legs were starting to go. You said earlier, David, about managers changing, shapes changing, it might have affected him as well. But we can't keep players that long. We have to move on. We have to start to bring others in. And I think the manager does want a centre back, but I'm just hoping it's not another footballing centre back like we've got. Somebody who's comfortable in the ball. We've got him. We just need somebody nasty who can defend, and that's it.
Scotty, if we look at the summer as a whole, I don't think that the manager's got the personnel to play the way he wants. I think we've got a default formation because the personnel that's there. And we've seen that with Scott Wright playing in the 10 recently. Scott Wright, a player that we've tried to get rid of the best part of 2 seasons now and seems to be part of the furniture at Ibrox just now. I think the manager wants to play a sitter and have Diamandi that wee bit further forward. And I think when we saw Diamandi coming and getting the ball so deep, almost Lundstrom-esque in the last 2 pre-season games when he's right on top of the centre halves, he's not going to affect games there. So until the personnel is tweaked, how do you think we should shape up in terms of the players that we've got at our disposal just now? Because I think if Diamandi is going to be a deep-lying midfielder for us, we're not going to get the best out of him.
I think you need to... I want to go with a flat midfield 3, right? Because we've lost every midfield battle and every Old Firm game there is to be seen, apart from we got closer to them in the Scottish Cup final. I keep going back to it, but that's the kind of bar that's been set. In terms of how we're going to set up, I think he'll go with the 2 8s and the 10, or a 6 8 and the 10, however you want to kind of call it. He'll go with a 2 and a 1. The problem is, just like Scott said, there's no anybody that can play 10 properly. Well, there's no a 10 at a club good enough in my eyes to play that. Hadji might have been. If you could have filled Hadji with runners running about him, Hadji could pick a needle in a haystack, no bother. He could play a first time pass, give him a ball into you, get ball in his feet, and he'll spray it wherever you want. He's both fitted, he was brilliant, but he's obviously for the off. So how we're going to set up's the $1 million question, to be honest with you, mate. It's a difficult one, because if we go out and we spend our money on a number 6, like Juan Jordan, for example, and there's an obligation to buy for 3-4 million quid, then everything John Bennett says in that interview today has just went right out the window. And if you bring in a loan, we're still not going to be happy, because it's another loan. It's not signifying any kind of intent. So it's difficult to say. You could also bring youth into this. Should we be bringing in Bailey Rice and Cole McKinnon and letting them develop into that 6 that we need? Remember Calvin Bassey done it under Gio. I remember him playing at centre half and thinking, what's Gio doing here? Like, this guy's not a centre back, and then we all know what happened after that. You know what I mean? So unless you give these guys time, there's not an actual quick fix to the problem. You need to give youth players first team fitter. You need to give them a pathway first. That's a whole other pod we could get into another night. But in terms of a 6, I think we'll probably go with Diamandi, Barron and Lawrence, just like it has in pre-season. I don't see Tom Lawrence staying. I think he might be one of the ones, just because Clement says at the end of the season that we can't do our business. We get into having players in the last year of their contract, and if they're not going to extend, we don't want Scott Wright to extend for starters, and we might want Tom Lawrence to extend. I'm not full Clement, but I don't think he's mobile enough for what Clement wants to see. We've seen parts say it against Union Berlin. Is that kind of fast, free-flowing football for a couple of goals, and it is. It's good to watch, but there was space to do that. Do you know what I mean? We've not got space against Motherwell at Ibrox. It's never going to happen. So it's still up in the air, to be honest with you, Davey. I don't really know what the answer is, but I hope I've gave a couple of decent enough suggestions about what we could do.
No, absolutely. If we take a wee point for the comments just now, obviously there's been speculation on certain players recently. However, one that we do have in the building, but is just using the club's training facilities, is John Fleck. So John Fleck is obviously homegrown coming through the Rangers Academy. He's 32. I think he'll be 33 by the end of this season. He's been plagued by injuries last 2 years. Ricky, would you take him at a year's contract just to fill that homegrown quota? Because there is a bereft of central midfielders at the club just now.
We've been linked. I saw some. We're getting linked to a lot of players this week. I saw some absolute belters. I saw Sergio Ramos was in a private jet, and somebody was tracking him from Spain. That was coming to Glasgow. That was a good one. And Scott McKenna, I saw that one as well. Everyone's going on about that. But John Fleck, to be honest, my personal opinion, I would rather give minutes to Rice and try and develop Rice. I would bring in another number 6. Because I totally agree. Diamonde, I think we've won a watch with that player, and he breaks the lines. His pass for Dessers in the first half for the first goal was absolutely sublime. You know, he sees the picture very, very fast, and he's totally wasted playing a defensive role. And he's the sort of player that can play anywhere in midfield as well. You know, so I would be using him further forward. It'll be interesting to see how Lawrence gets on at the weekend, because he did look fitter, and he did play the role very well against Berlin. But that was a friendly, you know. So Tynecastle's going to be 100 miles an hour. They're going to come for us, and so it'll be interesting to see how he performs at the weekend. But John Fleck, to be honest, I would rather give the minutes to Rice and develop Rice and try and get McKinnon, try and get these young boys properly integrated into the squad, you know.
Kerr, if we take that point, we know you've long been an advocate for bringing the young players through. You've said on this podcast and in previous podcast appearances that you've made that you see something in Cole McKinnon. Is there scope for us to develop a player this season? Is it something we need to do? Obviously, Barry Ferguson made fleeting appearances for Walter Smith in his last season, and then Dick Advocaat made the decision to build the team around him. Does a Rangers manager just have to be brave enough to throw one of these boys in and stick with it? As fans, will we be patient enough? Because I always remember Charlie Adams saying in his time that he bore the brunt of the Boo Boys when he was at Ibrox, and obviously Charlie Adam, whilst maybe not being the easiest on the eye, had great technique and he made a great career for himself down south. So perhaps that's someone that we could have used more than we actually did. What's your take on the sort of transition from the youth academy to first team? And is it something that we should be implementing right away?
We should be, Davey. That's why we've got an academy there. See if we're not going to use it, then don't put money into it, scrap it, and just get players for other teams or keep bringing in loans. We have to use them more, but you can never know what these boys are going to be like. I mean, after the Birmingham City game, I've seen a few comments on social media about Cole McKinnon not being good enough. You can't judge him in that game. He needs a good 10, 15, 20 games in a first team in the league or whatever to see what he does. Same with Bailey Rice. Now, everybody's saying go and buy Lennon Miller. We all know how good Lennon Miller is playing at Motherwell, but he's been given that chance with Motherwell because he doesn't put in the same pressure there, so he's been looking good. Someone do it, Kilmarnock's done it. Rangers should be doing it, but it's the expectation at Ibrox because we want to bring in players who are kind of hitting their peak or near it, so we can have a couple of seasons here and sell on. But see if you bring in Bailey Rice and Cole McKinnon and they do really well, they can end up doing what Nathan Patterson got us. Do you know that way? We have to give the boys a chance because if you've not got the finance to bring guys in, don't go back and play the players we've used previous seasons because that doesn't work. And when they play with the B team, they're not playing in competitive football like a couple of folk have mentioned. They're playing against teams that are in the league. So Bailey Rice to me is given in his locker, and I don't give it to Jazz. They should be involved more. Cole's the same. Coney's are on our first team games, and I'd rather play Cole McKinnon and Bailey Rice before I play. And I don't mind Scott Wright. I think he gives 100%. He follows instructions by the manager to a T. We know what he doesn't offer as well, and we have tried to sell him a few times when he's still at Ibrox, and I don't know if he'll be here or not. But if he's getting a game time, then the other two lads I mentioned should be getting game time as well. And I'd rather see McKinnon or Rice sitting behind, especially Rice because he can play that role behind Diamonde and Barron, and then let him flourish and let him learn instead of bringing in a better somebody on loan. But that's just my opinion. You yourself, Dave, you cut up bad games Billy Rice could have, and then he's playing at Ibrox and a couple of fans are on his back. I remember Ian Ferguson always telling us years ago when he played at Ibrox, he used to hate it at times because one bad pass and you had 50,000 folks shouting you were shite. And he says, you weren't. It's just sometimes the pressure. Sometimes Rangers players back then preferred playing away for games because the way support you no matter how bad you're playing. But at Ibrox, you've always got one or two shouting. So especially when sometimes when it's silent, you just hear somebody from a distance get a hammer off the park, and you're thinking, "I'm not done anything bad yet." So it's just the way fans are. But we have to maybe trust this. I'd rather see these guys coming through and seeing some progression with that way, and bringing in loan players and not doing anything because these guys are going away again at the end of the season if I don't want to buy them. So I'd rather see try to develop at least one or two around.
Scotty, obviously during pre-season, a lot of these guys have featured, and maybe it's by default, or maybe Clement does see some of them having a part to play in his plans. If we look at Leon King, he sort of suffered heavily for his impromptu appearances under Van Bronckhorst in the Champions League, and he's just never really recovered from being in the team at that time, and obviously us dropping for, near challenging to just faltering away. Alex Lowry is a guy who's flattered to deceive. He's had that big name from the sort of youth team all the way through, and despite a few personal problems in recent years, has never really overcame that after what was a promising start at Hearts, but then sent back to us halfway through the loan. Cole McKinnon's there, as we've already touched on. Ross McCausland featured heavily last season. But I look at Ross McCausland and I'm not sure he's a winger. I think he plays his best stuff inside. He's good with both feet. I don't think he has the pace to play in the outside, and I think he struggles to lift his head up. Do you see these guys being part of your team going forward, or do you think that they maybe have a ceiling and that ceiling's, squad players and that's just it? Or as Kerr says, Bailey Rice is the one that really maybe deserves to get a bit of prominence?
Seeking back to Leon King needs a loan. See if Leon King's a future centre back, a future Rangers centre back. He needs a loan on at Livingston next season in the Championship. He needs to go to a team that's going to be physicality coming up against him. I seen Morton sign a striker called The Jet last week, and I'm figuring I'm for doing this way. And we'll probably remember him for He's a big lump of a boy. If you put him on Leon King will learn more than 90 minutes than what he's ever going to learn in the Champions League, because he needs to hit Scottish football first. He needs to learn that. I don't think Leon King's going to make it, but there is still people that support him. Cole McKinnon, it's a weird one. Clement's used him on the wing, used him at right back, and he's a centre mid. That's really one I've not really understood. One thing I will say is that we've had probably the last 3 or 4 managers have said they're going to use youth players. It's been Michael Beale, who was a well-known youth coach in his days, and none of them got a look in. So is it that they're not good enough, or is it that we're not creating a good enough pathway? I don't think my pathway is good enough. I mean, Zeb Jacobs has pulled our pants down because he didn't even have a competitive league for a B team last year. They're playing friendlies. It's an absolute joke. But see if my boy was of age now and Rangers came to the table, I'd be like, no, go to Motherwell, because you've actually got a chance of getting in the first team. There's a pathway here. I wouldn't encourage him to sign for Rangers just the way things up just now. Ross McCausland, I've really want Ross to do well. I think he's the closest thing to a right winger we've had since Daniel Candace. Fine, he's doing it sparingly. He's learning on the job. I think he learned an awful lot for the Betis away match when he didn't track their left back. But then kind of petered out. He got a bad injury, obviously. Form petered out a wee bit, and then he picked it back up before the end of the season again. Scored that lovely goal at Tynecastle on the last day. Who else was there? So Bailey Rice. Bailey Rice is one that we've all heard about. I know Willie Irwin for our FC youth updates really well, and he's of the opinion that Bailey Rice was better than Lennon Miller when they were both 16. He's adamant he doesn't want us to sign Lennon Miller because of that reason, because we've got Bailey Rice sitting there who can play as a 6 or an 8. He told me that tonight. Zach Lovelace is an interesting one. This guy's in the last year of his deal. He's showing flashes, but see picking up a degree of hamstring injury that he did at St Mirren last season, that's not a good sign for this young guy's career going forward, because just with the significance of it, there's a good chance it can happen again, and he came back and it did happen again. You know what I mean? Who else is there? Archie Stevens is another one. That's a right winger that's been sitting there. He's in the last year of his deal. He's probably going to walk. It's difficult, but I think, to answer your question, Dave, I think we just kind of need to wait and see how it all unfolds for these guys. And it's all going to depend on who we can sell and who we could bring in. But what I would like to see is, like Curry's brought up Devine in the comments. Now, if Tavernier goes and we don't bring in a right back, Sterling's very injury prone, but are we going to be good enough to carry Devine at right back? Do you know what I mean? There's all these kind of things that you need to weigh up. So we'll just need to wait and see how it all pans out. But I would definitely like, for example, Bailey Rice to be in the midfield department next season and getting some minutes. Like I've been saying it since the tail end of last season, that see when you're 2-3-0 up at Hampton Ross County, bring Bailey Rice on, bring Robbie Fraser on, let them learn, give them game management, let them make an impression, let them get experience of playing at Ibrox, a full house. Like, give them this kind of, because all these young boys are brought up through a system to cope with the pressure. They're all trained and educated, etc. It's a really, really good programme Rangers have got, but they're just not getting them the opportunities, you know what I mean?
No, I think you talked at length there about the youth academy, and I think that was, very interesting for everybody watching, certainly for ourselves here. And I think it's something that we need to address going forward. I'll touch on Curry's point with Adam Devine. I think Adam Devine went to Motherwell and he started his first few games, but then lost his place to Stephen O'Donnell. So if you can't hold down the starting right back slot at Motherwell, what's your chances going to be at Rangers going forward? So for me, that's a concern with our youth players. I don't think we send enough of them out on loans, and homegrown loans especially. I think you make a great point in terms of touching the fact that the way to sort of strengthen them up, in a sense, would be to send them to the Championship. That's a very hard and competitive league, and there's a lot of teams struggling there financially. So that could be an avenue, even striking up a wee deal with a team there, just to say that we'll maybe loan you 2-3 players a season as long as you bleed them through. So I think that's all things that we need to look at. But no having competitive football for our youth isn't going to help us prosper in terms of going forward as the number one team in this league, unfortunately.
Can I come back in?
Aye.
Quickly. I had Kevin Thompson on the Rangers Journal a couple of weeks back, and me and him get chatting after the pod, and what Kev says to me is, he says that Alex Lowry gets sent on loan to Hearts, right? And it was an indifferent spell. I think he turned up in a cup match away to Kelly and he scored, and everybody thought that was him arriving. Hearts sent him back. Now, what Kev says is, it's just very sensible and simple. He says, how did he not get sent to Falkirk in League One? Played 40 games, scored 10, 15 goals, and then he's coming back to Rangers with a completely different narrative. It's all about the narrative, and how these boys can cope in first team situations, you know what I mean?
See, to touch on that, Scott, what annoyed me, see Lowry though, when he did come into the first team, when he came on for Hadji in the cup game, he was absolutely outstanding, scored a goal, played absolutely fantastic, He wasn't overcoached. And then the next game against Livingston, he gets man of the match and he was fantastic again, played really well. And then as soon as an experienced player came back, he was out the team, experienced player came back in, and then he had to start all over again. And then it took him about another 18 months to get his chance, Now, I understand there's a lot of people speaking about his attitude for the last few years. I don't know if there's any truth in that. But if these young players, if they do get a chance and they play well, like I would say the best youth player that's on form for us the last sort of 3-4 months is probably Robbie Fraser. When he's played, he's been outstanding. Like you said earlier, if Yilmaz gets injured and we play Robbie, we chuck him in and he plays well, keep him in the team. Don't just drop him because Jeffrey's this signing that we've brought in from this Brazilian left back. Keep the young player. If the young player's playing well, keep him in the team. That to me is important because it's always like if the player's playing well, the experienced player comes back, and despite even if no matter what his form is, he'll always get picked before the youth player, and it's hard for them to build up a bit of steam when that keeps happening to them,
I think it's an important conversation to have. We don't touch on it enough, I think, as Rangers podcasts and Rangers fans as well, as in putting the spotlight on it, because I think the club got away scot-free at times with the lackey academy talent that we produce. It's not really a question that gets asked by the media. It's more the key marquee signings, and I think it's something that we could all work towards in terms of maybe shining this as a light for the club to answer more questions on it. Because as you said, Scotty, Zed Jacobs came here under such great folklore, and what's the strike rate since he's came here? It's not been good enough. Kerr, if I can bring it back to the first team, there's always one player who says something that he shouldn't before the season starts, and that is the enigma that is Cyril Dessers. Now, he is a very nice guy, perhaps for his own good. He's too nice a guy, and he's just opened his mouth at the wrong time, and he's gave the media the soundbite that they all wanted in terms of championship and being, a must win, we will win, and all the rest of it. I get that that's a great mentality to have, but these are the type of conversations that you want to have in-house. And it looks like the big man's going to start the season as our number 9. I think he's the only one that's fit enough to play 90 minutes at present. I don't think Danilo's any close. What's your take on Dessers? I know he scored 22 goals last season, but is he good enough to lead the line, for the vast majority of it? Is there something there? I think you could see through Diamondi's pass and his composure with that finish against Union Berlin. It was fantastic. But as we've seen at Tynecastle in the last game of last season, he missed an absolute sitter that could have put that game out of sight. So what's your take on it?
Listen, Dessers is always going to be one of these guys who divides the support into. There's going to be supporters who like him, supporters who don't, supporters who depends what Dessers turns up. That's the one who'll support, because listen, some of his finishes are phenomenal. Some of his plays really good, and then you get the other side of it where he falls over the ball, or he sits in his butt and he doesn't want to get back up because he's complaining, or he passes to an opposition player, or he starts running, and then it just depends what Dessers turns up. We know he can score goals. He done it last season. He could have scored a lot more, but 22 goals in a season is relatively good. And it's if you told us that at the start of the season, we would have been happy. And the goals he had on Saturday were 2 good goals. Very good goals he scored. But like I say, he gets his chances in other games and he misses. We've seen him miss really easy chances, but we've also seen him score very, very hard chances. So it just depends who turns up. I think now he's going to be a number 9 because they're not really getting other options at the moment. I mean, Danilo's, I thought he'd have been further ahead with fitness, but he looks so far off it. And depending on how we play, Dessers might suit a system come on to play. You just don't know that way. But I think there will be clubs interested in Dessers because he struck last season. So I think somebody might always come in for him. I know Scotty mentioned to me about somebody we've been linked with for a long, long time, and he wanted to mention it. So I'll let him speak now.
Oh, the old Lawrence Shankland Cyril Dessers debate, eh? You haven't heard this off of me yet, have you? He's watched the journal at all, no? It's all I talk about is Lawrence Shankland. And how we need a number 9 that's just going to take a... No, mind when Rangers strikers used to be able to take a pass, take a touch and shoot. Instead of chop, try to turn. It just... Dessers just stresses the life right out of me, man. He's... For the 4.5 million and the wages he's taking, I think he's... I don't know. He's just not it.
Scotty, can I ask you, what type of striker is he?
At Dessers? A very muddled up one, I think, David, to be honest with you. I really don't know what type of striker he is, because he's not a fast, powerful frontman. You know what I mean? He doesn't use his physicality. And see that game, was it first pre-season match? It wasn't Man U, it was the other one. Right, the other one he couldn't take.
Ajax.
Is it Ajax? It was absolutely terrible, man. Then he's attempted chip shots against Birmingham as well. And then he goes and does that against Union Berlin at the weekend, and you're like, well, he's all right. So we stopped talking about strikers because he scored 2 and he shut us all up for another week or 2, you know what I mean?
Scotty, I know you're going to talk about Shankland here. Do you actually think, but is this not just like I mentioned it before? Alan Smith, John Eustace type of rumour. It's just going to run and we're still waiting to sign these guys because Lawrence has been linked with Rangers for a while, and he's in his last year of his deal. I mean, you hear people saying Hearts want this amount and that he's not worth that, but he's worth whatever Hearts thinks he is because he's their player. You can't put a price on him, and if he gets some European football next season, if he stays, they'll happily let him go for free because he's got him back into Europe. So do you think he'll come to us? Because personally, I would take Lawrence in a minute, but I don't think he will. I think the ship's sailed because I think we've been linked with him far too long, and usually when we link with somebody this amount of time, the deal never happens.
Aye, in me, there's two factors to it. If Dessers goes, I think there's a small chance it happens. Keith Jackson's wrote another clickbait piece for a record tonight saying that Rangers, now he's went for Rangers have changed their mind and the manager wants him to now saying that Rangers are having talks about whether they're going to put an offer in. So he's basically told us nothing without getting clicks. Do you know what I mean? Personally, I don't think the manager rates Lawrence Shankland. I think Lawrence Shankland is the answer, and I think he would bring an awful lot to his team domestically. It's not the answer in Europe, but domestically, I think you could kind of forget about your problems up front because, you know, you've got a goal scorer there. I mind seeing him in the semi-final. He got when we played Hearts and Shankland was going off his nut. He likes a Barry Mackay and that, walking off the park. And we've not had somebody, without speaking out of turn, we've not had a horrible bastard up front since Dado Purcell, probably. You know what I mean? It's all been wet wipes we've had up front playing for Rangers. And we need that leadership throughout the team because we've ripped the arse out of our leadership group this summer, so you need to bring in new ones. So, to me, he's just the safest option that's on the market just now. If we hadn't sold Tony Cholak, I wouldn't be sitting here shouting about Shankland, you know what I mean? I would have no need to, because I wouldn't have a striker that I pull all my hair out with. My Rangers number 9 just isn't the guy for me, to be honest with you, lads. So I think it needs looked at and assessed, and whether it's Rachmani or whoever it is that comes in, I just want somebody that's going to put a bonnet back in it. I don't want to see him try to skin 4 defenders and put him in a goal net. Like, wait, I don't care about any of that. Like, I'll quite happily take a last minute toe poke or something, you know what I mean? Just somebody with that poacher's instinct that can hold the ball up, run the channels, and do all the basics.
Well, Ricky, if we take Ali Quinn's point here, and Igamani's mentioned now, obviously, we've not seen Igamani during pre-season. I don't think anybody knows where Igamani is, obviously playing hide and seek during pre-season. But if that is a development player, and there was obviously mooted fee in the millions plus, why have we spent that money on a development player at the moment when our sort of striking department does need attention, we think, as fans? Is that not a worry, considering that the season kicks off on Saturday and we're getting into crucial must-win Champions League qualifiers and our front line is a bit tepid, to say the least?
Oh, it's a big concern. This guy's, you don't want to be putting any pressure on this guy when he comes into the squad. You know, you've got to just let him develop in the background and feed him in gently and give him minutes. You know, Danilo will hopefully be up to speed soon, but the jury's still out with Danilo. I mean, Dessers at the weekend, if he played like that every week, then fans would back him, you know. But the problem is you get that performance 1 in 10. Dessers' best form last season was when he had competition and he was going with Silva was playing up front, and then when Silva got moved out wide and he had zero competition, his form completely fell off a cliff and he went back to the bomb scare he was at the start of the season, you know. I'm with Scott. I'm dreading Dessers starting the season as our number 9. I know he is going to be for the first few games, but August is a really, really brutal month with 3 tough games in the league and our Champions League. Even to get in the Europa, we need to beat Kiev to get that 5 million. And hopefully Dessers does the business, but I'm a little bit concerned that he is going to be our main striker going into these big matches. But I don't think Hearts are going to be easy to deal with to get Shankland. They're adamant they want 4 or 5 million. If we put 3 on the table, like we said on Friday, just to test the water, but after Saturday, maybe they'll sell him to us. But before Saturday, no chance. So we will see.
Well, that's it. That's all that we can do is wait and see. And the season kicks off on Saturday. And I think we're going live on Friday night, Kerr. Would that be right? So we're having a wee Friday pod to preview the weekend action. So please join us for that. Thanks to everybody in the comments. Please like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends about us. A big thanks to Mr. Scott Kerr. A big thanks to Scotty coming on for the Rangers Journal. Much appreciated. And hopefully we can do something again in the future very shortly. And once always, thanks again to Ricky Forbes. So it's good night from me and it's good night from them. Good night.